In this video, you will learn 10 key chess tactics. If you stick around to the end of the video, I will share with you one chess combination and you will learn what the term chess combination really means. My name is James and I am part of the Meadow Eagle Learning Center team. If you get value on the material I will be presenting to you today, please hit subscribe and click on the notification bell so you'll never miss any new videos that Meadow Eagle creates. The first tactic is the pin. There are two types of pins. The first is called a relative pin and the other is called an absolute pin. So let us say that black goes knight f6 and we can go bishop g5 and create a relative pin. The knight can legally move to take the pawn on e4, but we can take the queen on d8 since the knight is no longer on f6. So let us see what will happen if we go knight c6 instead of taking the pawn on e4. Now we go bishop to b5 and create an absolute pin. What an absolute pin does is to make the pin piece not able to move legally because the king is behind the knight. It is not legal in chess to make a move to put your king in check. The next tactic is the fork. This can also be called a double attack. In this position, if it is white to move, there is a very good move that creates a fork to win that enemy queen. The move is rook to a6. You are probably thinking that I'm crazy and losing a rook for nothing and you can't do that. But in fact you can when you use a fork with a knight to c5. This attacks both the queen and the king. The king is in check, so it has to move. So let us say the black king moves to attack the knight, and we will take the queen. We now will be easily winning with this extra knight. The third tactic is called the skewer. So if you've ever watched the film Searching for Bobby Fischer, the final game shows this tactic in the final game. Black gets a promotion from a pawn to a queen first, but he loses his queen right after, when the main character creates his own queen to create a skewer, which wins the queen that was promoted first. White plays h7 and black promotes to a queen first on a1, but now we have a skewer with h8, and promote to a queen with a check to the enemy king on d4. The king has to move away from the check, and once that happens, we can win the enemy queen on a1. This next tactic is called a discovered attack. So in the position you see here, this is a typical French advanced variation line. It looks like black can win a pawn after he goes. Pawn takes on d4. White recaptures black with his pawn on d4, and black does the move knight takes d4, which is a terrible blunder. White can take on the black knight on d4, and after the queen takes on d4, white has a discovered attack with bishop to b5 check. Black has to defend from the check. Something similar is called a discovered check. This is when a player moves a piece out of the way of the piece behind it that will attack the enemy king. For example, in this case, there are two ways to move away the rook and have the bishop on g2 to give the check, while at the same time attack the black queen and win it. The moves are rook to f1 and rook to a3. Either way, the black queen cannot stop the check, and it will be taken by the rook, and the game is over. The next tactic is called double check. It involves checking the enemy king with two pieces at the same time. So there is a special rule regarding double checks. That is, if you give a double check, the enemy king has to move. There is no way to block a double check, which is a double check with both the knight and the rook on d1. Black cannot go with their bishop to d7 and just block the check by the rook, because their king will still be in check by the knight. So after black makes his only legal move, which is king to c8, then white can move his c6 knight to win the rook on b4. This tactic is called the removal of the guard, or removal of the defender. In this position, black currently has a rook for two pawns that white has. However, white can use the removal of the guard tactic by playing bishop takes d7 check. The black king can take, and white wins the rook on h3, because the bishop that was previously defending the rook on d7 has been removed from the board. This leaves white having two extra pawns and a winning endgame. The next tactic is called attraction. If you look at this position from the black side, it initially looks very bad for us, because white has two connected passed pawns ready to promote on the 7th rank. They have extra bishops, extra knights, and extra pawns. However, this attraction tactic can be used to overcome all of those factors and have black win the game in two moves. So the attraction tactic that we will use to win the game is rook take on g2 check. The king has to take because the queen on f3 is in absolute pin. Then after, the white king takes on g2, black delivers checkmate on h2 and wins the game for black against all odds. This next tactic is called clearance. This tactic basically is meant to move a piece to make that square clear and vacant for another piece to occupy. In this position right here, if we are playing the white side, it looks very similar to how bad this situation looked in the attraction tactic that we just learned about. The enemy forces appear to be crushing us by the number of extra pieces they have at their disposal. So the tactic is queen to h8 check. It is a queen sacrifice that forces black to take with their bishop on g7. After that, we have knight to h7, and that is checkmate. All the squares around the black king are being attacked, and the knight is checking the king on h7. Now you will learn the tactic called interference. So in this position, what this tactic means is to interfere with the connection between the two white rooks. In this case, black can go queen to c7, check. White has to move their king to the d file, because if they go to b4, then black just goes a5 and it is checkmate. Instead, after they move their king to the d file, they will lose the rook on d8, because we force the white's king to interfere with the connection of the rooks, and we can win one of them. So now is the part where you learn what is a chess combination. A chess combination is essentially chaining multiple tactic ideas that complement each other. Now look at this position, where we are going to use two tactical themes we learned before. So now we are going to see the answer, which is the following. We are going to use our first attraction tactic followed by a discovered attack. The first move is a queen sacrifice, with taking on c7 with check. The black king has to take back on c7, and then we follow up with another tactical idea we learned before, which is the bishop takes a5 check, and the queen on d3 is lost for black, and we win the game.